Most Australians think they're eating chocolate, but a lot of what sits on supermarket shelves has quietly changed. Some products now use palm oil instead of cocoa butter. Others have shrunk by nearly 20% while prices doubled. And some aren't even legally allowed to call themselves chocolate anymore. Today, we're exposing 6 Australian chocolate products that raise serious questions and revealing better alternatives you can reach for instead. Walk into any Coles or Woolworths, and the chocolate aisle looks reassuring. Familiar brands, purple wrappers, names you've trusted since childhood. But over the last decade, something fundamental shifted. Cocoa prices hit record highs in 2024, and manufacturers faced a choice: absorb the cost, raise prices honestly, or quietly reformulate and shrink products while hoping no one notices. Most chose the third option. The result is shelves full of blocks that look the same but contain less chocolate, cheaper fats, and more air. And in some categories, the word chocolate has disappeared altogether, replaced by compound coatings that cost a fraction to produce but taste nothing like the real thing. Once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. So let's start with Australia's most iconic chocolate block and what's happened to it. Number 1. Cadbury Dairy Milk Family Blocks. The shrinkflation scandal. B-roll. Cadbury Purple Blocks stacked on supermarket shelf. Cadbury Dairy Milk is the default chocolate in Australia. It's been in Aussie households for generations. The purple wrapper is as recognizable as Vegemite. But here's what changed. Back in 2015, a standard Cadbury Dairy Milk block weighed 220 grams and cost around $3, $50. Today, that same block weighs just 180 grams and sells for up to $8. Do the maths. The block shrunk by 18%, while the price more than doubled. That's nearly 180% more per gram of chocolate than a decade ago. Cadbury calls this responding to market conditions and rising cocoa costs. Consumer advocates call it shrinkflation, where companies reduce product size instead of raising prices transparently. B-roll, side-by-side comparison, 220 green versus 180 gram blocks. The problem isn't that chocolate got more expensive. Cocoa is a commodity. Prices fluctuate. The problem is the deception. The block looks the same. The wrapper design barely changed. But you're getting significantly less chocolate for significantly more money. And unless you kept an old wrapper to compare, you'd never know. This matters because it sets the pattern for everything else on this list. When the biggest brand in Australia can shrink their product by a fifth without changing the front of the pack, every other manufacturer knows they can get away with it too. And some have taken that logic much further than just shrinking blocks. Number 2. Coles Easy Melt Chocolate Buttons. No longer chocolate at all. B-roll. Coles chocolate buttons on shelf. These sit in the baking aisle at Coles, marketed as convenient melting chocolate for home bakers. The front label says choc buttons, not chocolate buttons, and that single missing letter tells you everything. In 2024, Coles reformulated these buttons. Customers immediately noticed the change. The new version barely melts, even in the oven. The old recipe was actual chocolate. The new recipe? Sugar, hydrogenated palm oil, milk solids, cocoa powder at just 6%, emulsifiers, and flavoring. Let that sink in. The primary fat is hydrogenated palm oil, not cocoa butter. The cocoa content is 6%, far below the minimum required to call something chocolate under Australian standards. This is compound chocolate, a term that sounds technical but really just means not chocolate. B-roll, close-up of ingredient panel highlighting palm oil. Food standards, Australia, New Zealand regulations state that milk chocolate must contain at least 20% cocoa solids and a specified minimum of milk fat and cocoa butter. These buttons don't meet that standard, which is why they're labeled choc instead. Shoppers on Reddit and social media have been furious. One user posted side-by-side photos showing the old buttons melting smoothly in baking, while the new ones stay as hard little pellets even after 20 minutes in a hot oven. Another wrote, "It's not even real chocolate anymore, it's just sugar and palm oil." Coles saved money by replacing expensive cocoa butter with cheap hydrogenated palm oil. You're left with a product that doesn't perform like chocolate, doesn't taste like chocolate, and legally isn't chocolate. But unless you read the fine print, the packaging gives no hint that anything changed. Number 3. Woolworths Essentials. Cooking chocolate melts. Compound chocolate masquerading as the real thing. B-roll. Woolworths Essentials Cooking Melts Packaging. If you thought that was just a Coles problem, Woolworths is doing exactly the same thing. Their Essentials Cooking Chocolate Melts sit right next to actual chocolate chips in the baking aisle. The front label shows melted chocolate dripping over a cake. The back label tells a different story. Ingredients: sugar, vegetable oil including fully hydrogenated palm oil, milk solids at 20%, cocoa powder at just 6%, emulsifiers, and natural flavor. Notice the pattern? Sugar first, palm oil second, cocoa powder, not cocoa mass or cocoa butter, at a tiny 6%. This is compound chocolate, and Woolworths labels it as milk compound chocolate in small print on the front. Most shoppers miss that detail. They see cooking chocolate melts, assume it's real chocolate, and buy it. B-roll, zoom on compound chocolate text. The texture and performance give it away. Real chocolate made with cocoa butter has a sharp snap when you break it and melts smoothly into a glossy liquid. Compound chocolate made with hydrogenated palm oil is softer, almost waxy, and melts into a greasy puddle that doesn't set properly. Bakers notice this immediately when they try to make ganache, truffles, or dipped treats. The coating doesn't temper. It doesn't set with a shine. It tastes flat and leaves an oily film in the mouth. You're not paying for chocolate. You're paying for chocolate-flavored palm oil sold in a bag that looks like the real thing. Number 4. Arnott's Tim Tam Biscuits, vegetable oil in the chocolate coating. B-roll, Tim Tam packets on supermarket shelf. Tim Tams are an Australian icon. They're sold internationally as a premium biscuit representing Aussie food culture. Millions of Australians have grown up doing Tim Tam slams with coffee or tea. But flip a Tim Tam packet over and look at the chocolate coating ingredients. Milk chocolate, 38% to 47% depending on variety, containing sugar, milk solids, cocoa butter, cocoa mass, and then vegetable oil, emulsifiers including soy lecithin and E476, and flavor. That vegetable oil inclusion is the issue. Traditional chocolate uses only cocoa butter as the fat. When vegetable oils are added, the product is still allowed to be called chocolate under Australian rules, as long as the cocoa content and other fats stay within specific limits. But it changes the mouthfeel, the melting point, and the flavor profile. Many Tim Tam fans, especially those who've tried European chocolate biscuits, describe the coating as softer, greasier, and less complex than pure cocoa butter chocolate. This isn't unique to Tim Tams. It's standard practice across Australian chocolate biscuits. But it's worth knowing that the chocolate on your Tim Tam isn't pure chocolate in the traditional sense. It's a reformulated blend designed to be cheaper to produce, more stable in hot warehouses, and easier to work with in industrial coating machines. You're eating nostalgia and marketing as much as you're eating actual chocolate. Number 5. Budget Supermarket Easter Eggs. compound chocolate with palm oil. B-roll, supermarket Easter egg display. Every Easter, Kohl's, Woolworths, Aldi, and Big W fill their shelves with giant bags of chocolate eggs, bunnies, and novelty shapes, at prices that seem unbelievable. A kilo of Easter eggs for $10 or less. But here's the reality. Many of these seasonal products use compound chocolate made primarily with palm oil instead of cocoa butter. A 2015 investigation found that Cadbury and other major brands were adding palm oil to Easter products even when their regular blocks didn't contain it. The reason is simple economics. Palm oil is dramatically cheaper than cocoa butter. It's more heat-stable during shipping and storage, and for mass-produced seasonal items that get eaten quickly, most consumers don't notice the difference. Children certainly don't complain, but parents often do. The eggs taste sweeter, less complex, and leave a greasy coating in the mouth. Some describe it as waxy, like eating a chocolate-scented candle. The label will usually avoid the word chocolate altogether, using choc or milk choc compound instead. That's the giveaway. Real chocolate costs more. If a manufacturer can sell you a kilo of Easter eggs for the price of 2 small blocks of actual chocolate, something has been substituted. In this case, it's the cocoa butter replaced with palm oil, and the cocoa content reduced to the bare minimum. Number 6. Dark chocolate blocks with surprisingly low cocoa content. B-roll, various dark chocolate blocks on shelf. Walk into any Australian supermarket and you'll find dozens of bars labeled dark chocolate. The word dark suggests healthier, more intense, higher cocoa content. But not all dark chocolate is created equal. Some mainstream blocks labeled dark or dark milk contain as little as 45% cocoa solids, with sugar still dominating the ingredient list. Compare that to a genuine 70% or 85% dark chocolate, where cocoa mass is the first ingredient and sugar is secondary. The difference in taste, texture, and nutritional profile is enormous. A 45% dark bar might taste only slightly less sweet than milk chocolate, with minimal bitterness and a soft, creamy melt. That's not what most people expect when they reach for dark chocolate. B-roll, comparison of 45% versus 70% ingredient panels. In November 2024, Choice tested Australian dark chocolates and found wide variation in quality, cocoa content, and price. Some products marketed as premium dark chocolate were barely darker than milk, while genuinely high cocoa bars from smaller producers delivered the intense, complex flavor dark chocolate should have. This matters because people often buy dark chocolate specifically for health reasons. More antioxidants, less sugar, a more satisfying treat in smaller portions. If your dark block is mostly sugar with just enough cocoa to justify the label, you're not getting those benefits. You're getting marketing. By now, the pattern is impossible to miss. Across Australian supermarket chocolate, the same strategies repeat. Replace cocoa butter with cheaper palm oil. Reduce cocoa solids and boost sugar. Shrink blocks, but keep packaging the same. Use choc or compound to avoid chocolate standards. Reformulate quietly and hope customers don't notice. This isn't about one brand or one dodgy product. It's a system-wide shift that's been happening gradually for years, driven by rising cocoa costs and the pressure to keep prices competitive. The result is shelves full of products that call themselves chocolate, but barely meet the definition. So what are the alternatives? Let's talk about Australian chocolate options that are actually worth your time and money. First, look for chocolate where the ingredient list is short and honest. Cocoa mass or cocoa liquor. First, cocoa butter, sugar, maybe milk and vanilla. No vegetable oils, no palm oil, no compound coatings. Brands like Hayes, a South Australian chocolatier, Use real chocolate with proper cocoa butter in all their products. They're more expensive, but you're paying for actual chocolate, not industrial confection. Second, seek out bean-to-bar makers. Australia has a growing craft chocolate scene with producers who source cacao directly, roast it themselves, and keep ingredient lists tiny. You'll find them at farmers markets, specialty stores, and online. They cost more per block because cacao and craftsmanship are expensive. But when you taste them side by side with a mass-market block, the difference is undeniable. Real chocolate has complexity, varies with origin and season, and melts cleanly without leaving a greasy film. Third, even within big brands, you can make better choices. Cadbury sells both the shrunk blocks we criticized earlier and single-origin bars that contain higher cocoa percentages and no palm oil. Lindt's Excellence range clearly lists cocoa content from 70% to 99%, with cocoa mass as the first ingredient. These products sit on the same shelves as the compound coatings, but they're fundamentally different. Finally, read labels every single time. Don't assume the chocolate you bought last year has the same recipe today. Companies reformulate constantly, and they're not required to announce it. If the ingredient list has changed, if chocolate became choc, if vegetable oil appeared where it wasn't before, you'll only know if you check. Australian food culture has drifted a long way from simple, honest ingredients. Chocolate is one place where that's visible in every aisle. What used to be cocoa, cocoa butter, and sugar has become a laboratory-designed product optimized for profit margins and shelf stability, with just enough cocoa to keep the name. You don't have to boycott supermarket chocolate entirely, but you do have to get choosy. Next time you're in Coles, Woolworths, or Aldi, flip the block over. Look at what's listed first. Check for cocoa butter versus vegetable oil. Avoid anything labeled compound or choc. Look for actual percentages of cocoa solids, and choose products that don't hide behind vague marketing. Support brands that still respect what chocolate is supposed to be. If this video changed how you see the chocolate aisle, tap like so more Australians can find it. Hit subscribe if you want more investigations into everyday products quietly changing on Australian shelves. And tell us in the comments, which product shocked you the most? Have you noticed your favorite chocolate tasting different? And what should we investigate next? Breakfast cereals, plant-based alternatives, or something else hiding in plain sight? Thanks for watching.